let's make a spoon. What I have here is a billet that's been split out of a standing dead crab apple tree. We took it down a few months back, and I decided that I'd like to be able to do some carving with the wood that wasn't completely shot, and so anything that still seemed like it had a little greenness to it, I cut down to an appropriate size that would fit in the 5-gallon bucket, filled the bucket with water and some other stuff to try to prevent growth, and now I'm pulling one out to try to make a spoon out of it. As you can see, it's not exactly squared off exactly, and if you look, it's kind of wonky on the end. So, step one, let's square this thing up a little bit. Start off with a saw. Now this is a Corona and it's a 10-inch saw, but I initially had started off with one that you could get from Harbor Freight for about $7. Ended up getting this one for $10 at a flea market. It was used, but it still has lots of life left in it. And I like the 10-inch a little better than I do the 7-inch. And should have a nice squared off end here. And we can see there's no checking or cracks in there. And again, because we've left this stuff, may have dried and got some cracking in it, but the other side looks pretty good for now. Now we can tell that this is the inside of the tree and this is the bark side of the tree. I like to make my spoons facing up to the bark side of the tree so that in the bowl you have that concentric circle look instead of, well, we used to call it the H or the X, depending on how you look at it. But so to start off with now, we need to square this up, flatten it up. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle, but we will do that with our axe. Now this is, people who've read my posts and such, this is the Pittsburgh axe. Bought this axe about 30 years ago at Harbor Freight, and the intent was, it was supposed to be a Christmas present for my son who wanted an axe. We put it away for Christmas in the closet and figured that we'd give it to him at Christmas and forgot all about it. And by the time we found it, it was probably 2 years later when we were moving, and so it got tossed in with the garden tools, and this has been a root and dirt and rock axe ever since. And when I got first started to where I was trying to do spoon carving and said, oh, you need an axe to get things roughed out, this was the axe I had. So I took, sharpened up the edge, profiled it to where it was slicey, and then because I didn't like that plastic feel, I did a paracord wrap on it. And this is the beginning of my spoon axe. Now I have several other axes, but this is my go-to. This is the first one I grabbed because I've used it on so many spoons up to this point that it's just got a comfortable feel in the hand and it knows where it wants to be. Now again, we're not dealing with the actual log in the round here. This has already been split down. It just wasn't nice and smooth. Now you can see we got a fairly flat edge there. This side's kind of lumpy and bumpy. Cut up a little bit. Now you notice the axe is going up and down. The idea is the axe continues to do the same thing. wood accordingly underneath it. So imagine if it were some kind of a power tool that was just constantly going up and down, and you stuck the wood in where you wanted it to be cut. That leaves a little more thinking in your left hand and a little less in your right, because you're going to do that same thing all the way up and down. And you can see now that side's fairly smooth. Now, that doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. We're going to be taking a lot out of that. But the parts I really want to be squared off and flat are the sides, because one of the cuts that we're going to do in here is going to involve laying the wood up on its side, and we don't want it to rock. And in this particular case, I think we're pretty close to that now. Loosen this up. You can see I'm not trying to take a whole lot out of this, just trying to flatten it and smooth it. Background fill here, because it seems like there's a bunch of points at which I just forget that I'm actually talking while I'm doing this. Forgive me if I get quiet on you. That'll be kind of flat on both sides. Now, certainly this isn't done with a plane. It isn't necessarily meant to look like it was done with a plane. Alright, I do have a pencil in here. So, here's a pencil. This is the Derwent Black Academy watercolor pencil. Now, it's a watercolor pencil, so it should have no problems drawing on things that are wet. And in this particular case, all we really want is a center line. Now, to paraphrase some of the other makers out there, Jimmy DiResta for one, if it looks like it's centered, it is centered. So my eyeball says that's the center. Kind of feels like the center. And my eyeball says that's the center. So that's the center. Look down there. Connect those two lines. I got a center line right down the middle. Now, is that perfect? Doesn't have to be perfect. So, I think this is the prettier side for the bowl, so I'm going to say I want to put a bowl here. Give it a little bit of space. Right, so I don't know, back to say here, good distance for a bowl. Let's give us a little sketch around. Now, you can use a template for this. I may can sell some templates, but in this particular case, I'm just going to try to freehand draw this, because before it's all said and done, everything I put on here is going to get cut off, and then we're going to have to try to draw it again later anyway. So figure the neck is going to come in, and then we'll do a nice straight line down there, trying to be equal on both sides of that center line. Doesn't really look that it's centered on there, but it certainly seems like it's centered on here to me. So if it looks centered, it is centered. Now, where the neck comes in, to where it's going to be the skinniest, we're going to put some relief here. And then most of the way back, we're gonna put a little crank in this next. So I'm gonna put a line there, line there. Now I'm gonna go back. Get our saw. So the idea is we put these relief lines in here as we're cutting with the axe. We will be able to cut and not worry about carrying our chop all the way into the body of the bowl. Yeah, when the line is not looking where you can see it, you kind of gotta trust your counts. Just look at it. Come on. Alright, so we're up to about the line. And again, the line is going to be forgiving because before it's all said and done, I will be cutting off that line. One to the other side. Another one to the other side. Now lastly, we're going to do this line across the bowl. And that is for the crank relief. So when you take a spoon out of your drawer, you look at a spoon that you're used to eating with, or whatever, tablespoon, teaspoon, you'll notice that the handle and the bowl aren't in a straight line. They have a little curve to them, kind of like, where your wrist bends down. Well, the spoon is going to also bend down like that, and that is called crank. Now this is going to be a cooking spoon rather than an eating spoon, but still, a little bit of crank makes it pretty. So, one of the other things about using the watercolor pencil is a lot of times it'll rub off. But like I said, this is only temporary markings that we're going to cut off with each of these cuts. So, one of the cuts that always threw me in the beginning, it's the first cut I try to do, and that is to cut. So here's the front of the spoon. We're going to cut this angle from the tip of where the spoon is back to that lower angle to establish the crank. So you're looking at the spoon where the tip is up. We're going to cut this down into where the bottom of the spoon would be, and then it would go back up the other side. In order to do this, that's why we wanted this side flat. We're going to hold this down. We're going to cut. We're going to chop into it here, but we're doing it near the edge of the block so that when I miss, I'm not swinging back into my leg. I'm actually swinging, and if it misses, it hits the block. This is an angled cut, but it's also a slicey cut. We're trying to do nice, smooth relief here so that we get a nice, smooth face on what's going to become the top of the bowl and the rim of the spoon. Now this is an awkward looking cut. A lot of people say it looks dangerous, like I'm cutting at myself. But if that weren't here, I'm cutting right there, so there's nowhere to reach this hand over here. You can hear that thump as I cut through the spoon and into the actual chopping block. My eye is focused down into that relief cut that I made with the saw. I want to go to the bottom of that cut, but really no further. When I get there, I can do a little relief to clean it out. And you can see here that the cuts across here are nice and smooth. But it's a little fat. Okay, so that kind of suggests that I was cheating it towards the back. So the front of this needs a little more trim. And I can do that trim now, or I can leave that for later. All this will be finished up with knives and hooks and things like that. But for now, start off getting most of the stuff out of there. It's a lot less stuff you got to worry about. Yeah, and I see you got chips on your block here. You don't really want them in your way. You want to get them off. I've seen a lot of people will do, and they'll just take their axe and clear off the chips. I was doing that for a long time too. I was explained to me by someone that that's not good for your blade, right? You do that, you're running the blade over there. So I'm trying to not do that. We all got to get better somehow. And so if you see me do it, don't ride me too hard for it. I am trying. But a lot of better carvers are out there. Better than me, and I see them do it all the time, so let's not be too bad. So now that we have this angle down, we want to do this way too. So we're going to have an angle in so that it's kind of like this giant flattened out check mark. And now, I don't know if you can see the top of my block, but when I flatten this off, I cut lines cross-hatched into here. So I can put this in most places and it'll stay put. So, in reality, I'd like to come from here all the way down to there. But I don't need to do that right now. I can do it just here. Alright, so if I get this soft angle down into the bottom there, see the shape I'm going for. Alright, so kind of looks a little curvy now. Missed a few and grazed a few. Now I would normally ignore that, but I'm trying to do everything so it looks like a certain thing for demonstration. The other thing you'll see is once I've got a cut going, I have this cut. I want to just aim for the darkness of that cut, and then the axe is hitting in the same place. And then when you get to where it just wants to fall off, you're good. So we've got a roughness in here. I can trim that off with just the sharpness of the axe and slide on it. Or I can ignore it, because again, we will be coming back at this with hooks and knives. Now, lines for my handle over there. And now I've rubbed most of them off with my hand, so I'm going to give it a nice little approximation here. You can see I'm kind of holding the pencil and measuring it based on my knuckle. And the whole circle of the bowl is gone. So I know this was where my neck was going to be. So, give us a curve here for the neck. And another curve here. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not that good of an artist. I like my electronic art tools. If I had to draw something, I would just as soon draw it with a computer and a mouse, or numbers and math, and let it actually do it. That gives me a good approximation of where my neck is going to be and where my handle is going to be. Now, there are some people who will start chopping right there. They'll put their axe here and they'll chop. They'll do these bump cuts where they bump, bump, bump. And the idea is that, hey, it's going to pop all this stuff off to your relief cut. If you look at this grain, that is some squirrely grain. And so some of that grain might go that way, and if I go down there, it wants to follow the grain. You know where that's going to be? It's going to go like right across the handle. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn it around, and I'm going to relieve this handle out that way. Now, again, the axe is your friend for getting rid of a lot of waste at a time. And all you got to do is give it a place to go. And you just chop up some relief areas. Alright? And then when you chop down into it, it's going to follow that. Follow that right off. Okay, now I can do this further. As I come up, I'm straightening it up so the handle's up and down, and I cut right through the line. Okay, what you do on the left, you want to also do on the right. So, this up some space at the bottom. Chop that off. Now you can see I didn't get up to the line there, so loosen it up. So you can see I'm up near the line there. And if I want to get, again, the more you do with a larger tool like an axe or a draw knife, things like that, the less you're going to have to do later with a knife. So now I only have this small little area. So if I start up here, I can try to do that, or I can, again, loosen it up and just use that relief as a safety. So let's see, what's the rule? Never go more than 2/3 up. You know, you don't want to be near your fingers there. But here we go. Just like a lot of other things, the blade is going to follow the path of least resistance. So wherever you give it space to go, or weakness to break out, it's going to follow that. Now again, we're on this other side. Okay, so you see, it got to where there was a cut, and it said, okay, that's enough. And here, you can hear it cracked out. We're using the weakness of the grain, right? When the grain crosses the relief cut, can't go any further. It's done. Just chop out of it. You see, still have relief for coming in this direction, and I'm not dead on the line, but I don't have to be. All right. So now we look at this. We've got a curve of a spoon here, a curve of the spoon there. Hopefully the camera is going to see low enough to do this. This curve here, we're going to take it, we're going to put it into this little notch here. Cut down into that. Now we have the relief on the end of that, so I know it can stop me before I go too far. And as I got a little notch there, I can turn the spoon. We've got that. Well, let's see, I can go up a little further. Rotate it, so now I have kind of a curved cut around that line. Flip it around to the other side. And you see, I'm cutting down, up and down, and then I'm moving the spoon this way to get it to follow that curve. in here, curve in there. This one in just a little closer to the neck. Turn around. Clean that off. Clean that off. Now we have what looks like a little bit of a curve at the bottom of the spoon. And we'll match it up a little bit, clean it. So, now, this is part of the spoon here, and we actually have a nice flat area that we can support it while we're doing it. Now the first part, we're fighting against the flatness of it, so we're on the square part of this. And I've got a good grip up here on it, so I can relieve the corner. So I go around. I've got around, but now I want to get closer. So I don't have to do this line right off the top, or right off the bat. Sneak up on it a little bit. And as I get there, I can keep that chip running where I have a dark spot. And then turn it, it will follow it. Now this side, line's facing away from me, so I can't really see the line. Get it started. Give it a little bit of trust. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect because when we get done here, we're going to introduce this spoon to the knife. We could do all kinds of fine work with the knife. Now in this case, we got a spoon that's coming up to a point, because cutting across that grain, that's where you get chips and such. But still get a little bit more curve out of this. In that direction. That direction. Alright, so it's pointy, but I can still see my line. And so now the next, I don't need to draw this, but the idea being we're trying to get an angle down to the bottom here, and then come back up here. So we're going to turn it over. We're going to try to thin out this. Now, this is a big chunk. You can try thinning it out like that, but one of the easier ways is if you take a corner, see when you cut in a corner, you're only cutting a small amount of wood instead of all that wood. And you can match that corner on the other side. Now I know if it comes to a good point in the middle that I've got it the same. Now I only took a little bit off. So now after I've cut off the two sides, chop down that center because I made a corner. So now we're down to this amount of thickness. That's a little, still too thick, so we're going to do the same thing again. Put down the corner on one side, turn it over. Corner on the other side. See that we got them in the same place. And the corner down the middle. Made a little extra corner there, and that made a little extra corner there. Now when we carve that off, it's like that. Now, this point here is no longer interesting to me, so we're going to just nip that off. Alright, so we got something that's somewhat spoon shaped. Looks a little fatter on this side, but it also too fat in the back. So this particular case, the grain is going to go the other way, right? Because you got downhill, so you got to cut downhill. This way, now you're up at the top of the hill again. So if I try to cut this further that way, we're going to get it to chip out. So it's going to cut off this corner. On that side, and try to match it on this side. And then again. And again. And if it goes down the side, if it goes down the handle, that's okay, because we're still trying to get that handle to do that same shape too. Alright, so we got one corner. And the second corner. Look, you got a little, what is that, trapezoid or, nope, home plate looks like. Like we used to draw the houses in kindergarten, where you draw a little square and then you draw a little roof on top. And so, last thing, we're going to cut the roof off. So when we get down there, we have a rectangle. Okay, so for as much more as I want to do, I could clean this up some. I can make this a little bit rounder and the notch. I got a notch up here, got a notch down there. But yeah, everything that I do now is that much less I have to do with a knife. When the lines aren't on your side, it's a little tough to look at. Okay, you can see that I've got that and that. I mean, I could clean that up now if I want to. Alright, so that now looks a lot like a spoon. Normally take more of this handle out. Can certainly take a lot more out of this back. And you know, we can get this spoon almost down to something that looks like a respectable spoon. As long as you keep your axe nice and sharp, it will do these cuts nicely for you. And you don't have to spend all that effort pushing on the back of a blade with your thumb, where you just have the weight of this axe head. It's making these nice smooth cuts. Yeah, my problem is I never know when to really stop with the axe. I see a lot of people, they get so far and they're like, alright, enough with the axe, let's grab the knife, and they start knifing things. I really like to feel like I've done all that I can do with the axe before I start going to a knife. But for now, that's the axe.